Welcome to the Business Edge podcast, brought to you by Central Willamette Credit Union. Today, we're thrilled to have Dr. Kristine Medyanik, organizational psychologist, leadership expert, and the creator of our Leading Across Generations UnCourse. Dr. K's work dives into the fascinating dynamics of today's multi-generational workforce, offering fresh perspectives on leadership, communication, and collaboration. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, welcome in. We appreciate it.
So, Dr. K, can you talk a little bit about yourself, what inspired you to do your research and the writings that you do, and why you are so invested and passionate about this kind of communication?
Yeah, so I am a millennial. And people, when I hit the workforce, people said that word like it was a bad word.
It was a bad word for a long time.
It was a bad
I'm
word.
just like, am I a millennial? Do I want to admit that yet?
Yeah, I don't identify as a millennial.
Yeah.
And so I was really fascinated by the resistance people had to me just by my age in the workforce. And I was, out of college. I was out of the Navy. And so I had an opportunity at one point in time, a little later in my career, to start my doctoral journey. And when I was asked what I wanted to research, I thought, gosh, I really want to know if what everybody's saying about us is so terrible. Is it true? And it was a really fascinating journey to go through and dive into that research to the depth that I did, because it was a little bit of both and, right? Millennials hit the workplace and we were considered entitled and spoiled and the trophy generation. And there was some other fun stereotypes that went along with that. But there was also things to be learned from them. They were also bringing a fresh perspective. And I think that is one of the things that we have to continuously remind ourselves about, is that fresh perspective. And it's not just generational, it's all kinds of diversity that brings new ideas to the workplace. And so that's really just what brought me to diving into that area of research. Now, organizational psychology specifically is around leadership and culture and motivation, and really the pillars that help us get the most out of the people that work on our teams, right? And so that's where my specialty is at, but my research started in the generational space.
Yeah, that's awesome. That perspective, like you said, it goes both ways. So like the new perspective that millennials are bringing in obviously can change the minds of older generations, and vice versa. The perspective from millennials will change based on the perspectives of the older generations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I always never think about that. I always think about how it's influencing on the current, but the current can influence the future as well. So.
Well, and I often remind leaders that had we considered what millennials were saying when they hit the workplace in 2006 to 2007, when the early ones hit their post-college era, if we'd have considered what they had to say, we would have actually had a lot more infrastructure in place when COVID hit. Right? And so millennials started to go, okay, well, I guess I just have to do what I'm told now, because this is the way we've always done it. And that's a dangerous set of words.
Way we've always done it, yeah.
And we didn't give a lot of consideration until all of a sudden everybody had to go work remotely. And I remember early in COVID, somebody going, I have to run to the office so I can make copies. And I was like, oh no. Why are we still doing it like that, right?
Yeah.
And then we learned a whole bunch of new tools, but what if we'd have started that process 10 years earlier?
Yeah, exactly. So your UnCourse talks about the lens we use to see the world. Can you tell us a little bit first what an UnCourse is?
Yeah.
And then why is it so important for us, or for leaders and really anyone, to understand the lens through which different generations view work and life?
Yeah, so an UnCourse is a little bit like an e-course, but it's to take with you. I think we spend too much time at our desks. I think we spend too much time at the computer on our screens. And so the idea of an UnCourse is really learnable content that I can go sit on my patio and get a little bit grounded in fresh air and the outside stuff. Or as a busy mom, I can take it to my kids' game, and in between the timeouts, I can look at a couple pages. And so it's really all of the components of an e-course with videos embedded that you can pull up on your cell phone if you want to, and you can just listen while you can hear the birds too. But it also has prompts for reflection and homework and all of those things built in, a little bit like a working journal also. So it's that idea of leadership development on the go. I'm encouraging organizations to get sets for their whole team so that they can pick a topic and go through it as a team and do one chapter a week, and then create some dialogue, because dialogue creates conversations that build trust. And trust is going to be critical in our organizations as we're navigating future generations hitting the workplace, like the latter part of Gen Z, and Alpha Gen's coming in screaming hot.
It's coming in tomorrow at the going rate.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they're going to be here. And you actually asked the second part to that question.
Oh, I
was
did.
The lens part.
Yes.
And so the generational lenses is an interesting conversation, because we can create, essentially 5 buckets of people that are in the workforce right now, from traditionalists all the way to Gen Z are in the workplace. We've never had 5 working generations at one time.
That's crazy.
We might hit 6.
Wow.
Because not all the traditionalists may retire, especially if we have economic downturns that create need for people to stay in their work lives a little bit longer. So we might hit 6 generations. Now, when we consider the lens generations are working and being in the workplace with, what we're really talking about are the values that they're bringing into their conversations, right? And so we started seeing conversation around work-life balance starting to really hit with millennials, and starting to say, I don't understand why I can't work from over here because everything's on this little box, right? Well, Gen Z is going to be pushing harder in those spaces, because they're going to say, you know what, I don't see any reason to buy into this hustle culture, right? Because it's not serving you.
Correct.
Right? You look exhausted, right? They're watching previous generations and going, what's the point? The better part for us as organizational leaders to stop and remember is part of their belief system that they're navigating is this idea that they're never going to work hard enough to get where some of their predecessors have gotten to. So one of the things they're carrying with them is this idea of, I'm not going to work that hard to be that poor.
Yeah.
Right? And so we start to change the lens that they're looking at work through, and you kind of go, oh yeah, I don't want to do that either. Right? And so we start to change the way that people see work and work-life balance, and words like work-life integration instead of balance, and it changes the conversation. And so I like to talk about the 5 rings, and you'll see them in the UnCourse, but I really do believe with everything in my being that personality is something that we're born with, at least an inkling of it, right? And then our experiences, which is the second ring, shapes how that shows up in the world. But those experiences, just one piece of that experience puzzle is generational. Experiences, but it could be religious experiences, it could be gender experiences, it could be socioeconomic experiences, right? And then all of a sudden we have all these different, like, you have a singular lens that's 100% unique to you, but I can take pieces of what I know about personality and generation and socioeconomic status, and then I can say, but there might be some beliefs that we have in common. There might be some beliefs that he brings to the table in a new way, because beliefs lead to actions and actions lead to results. But we have to talk to people from the inner rings of experience and personality to reshape beliefs if we're going to get different results.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so as you're building kind of the spheres that you're talking about, how do you move beyond what you perceive as a stereotype or stereotypical things? How do you move beyond that and what you believe somebody's religion or age or whatever might be influencing them, and move beyond those to really have conversations and build community?
Trust and respect become really critical elements of that starting process, right? To do that in an organization, what we're talking about here is organizational settings, right? We need to have psychological safety. So we need to build and have conversations that allow people to show up in their strengths and authentically in meaningful ways so that they continue to believe that they're allowed to show up authentically and in meaningful ways, right? So how do we do that? Well, I always ask people to consider, what would you do if it was your grandma sitting across the table asking something of you, right? Will you respect and trust your grandma or your grandpa? Hopefully. Maybe not. I mean, we all have difficult family dynamics. But because I love and respect them, I value what they have to say. Well, that a person of that same age or somebody really young, maybe once somebody the age of my teenagers comes in and I'm like, oh, teenagers, right? But would I give my child the chance to say something, right? And so I ask leaders on a regular basis to take that first step into, what if this was somebody that I loved? What if this was somebody that I needed to maintain a relationship with? In a workplace, it's really challenging because you're like shoved into a group of people that are like a bunch of strangers and maybe weirdos and maybe just like really different than you. And that's hard, right? And now I have to use extra energy, right, as a human being to like offer something to you in a way that we can say, okay, well, I guess I can learn to value and respect you. Well, leaders have to take that first step, right? So we need to create opportunities for meaningful dialogue where we show vulnerability, teaching others that they can be vulnerable, but then also building culture around the values of our organization. I used the word work-life balance a little while ago. A lot of organizations say that that's a value that they want as part of their team, but nobody can actually define what that means. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what do you mean by work-life balance? I mean, everyone's got to stick the same 40-hour work week in a week. It's like, how are you balancing that? What separates you? If everyone's 8 to 5, what's the balance? Like, how do you differentiate from the other ones?
Right. And so what does it mean to your organization if you start saying that? What does it mean to somebody else's organization if we say innovation is a value of ours, right? And so we need to bring in common language and that trust that allows us to kind of calibrate the words that we're using on a regular basis. The best way to do that is continuous leadership development. And I don't just mean in your C-suite. I mean across all levels of an organization so that we create common language across our teams and we create dialogue that allows people to go, oh, we have something in common.
Yeah, that common language thing too, it's interesting because not everyone says this. Everyone might say the same words, but it might mean the same thing to the same person, and it's drastically different across generations as well. So, like you have to first start doing that before you can actually, maybe perfect it or utilize it. So.
Well, and people are messy.
Yeah.
And the minute that you bring on a new team member, you kind of got to start again, right? It's why we talk about the stages of team development of forming, storming, norming, performing, right? Like,
say that 5 times. Can you say that again?
So we have 4 main stages of developing teams. And the first one is forming, where people come together. The next one's storming, where we have to like figure out why you're so different than me and like who's in charge here and like why do you get to decide what the rules are. And then we get into sort of normal activities. After we stabilize, then we start performing. Now, occasionally we have a 5th stage, which is considered adjourning, right? The teamwork, the development of what we're doing has come to an end. And so in those team development processes, we need consistent opportunities to get through the storming faster. Right? Because storming is where people go, I'm not valued. Nobody likes me. I don't want to be here.
I don't know what's going on.
Nobody gets me. I don't know what my job is.
Yeah.
Well, if we just expect people to get into a role and don't create any opportunities for people to create common language, then that new person will consistently be like, I don't know why I'm here.
Yeah.
Because they are bringing in all of their own stuff.
Yeah, this is the first time I've ever been presented the storming part. I was like, that one caught my attention real quick, because I mean, obviously, everyone does that. You're brainstorming what you're doing when you get there, but you might not realize that you should probably be doing that as a group and bringing everyone up to speed so they're in the same storm, so to speak.
I like to think of it as like that crappy part of dating.
Yeah.
Right? Like you went through the whole phase of like, we really like each other, and now something has ruffled my feathers. Right? For the first time, something has happened that has ruffled my feathers. And we either break up, cue the exit of the work team, right? Or we figure it out and figure out how to work in our strengths. But if we don't have tools to work through storming, it's just really uncomfortable. And we see a lot of that with the generational stuff, because we have vast differences. Let's not even talk about what we navigate when we start bringing in generations that come from different parts of the world.
Yeah.
Right? My husband and I were born in the same year, but he grew up in USSR, in Russia, right? Before the fall of communism. There are some distinctly different things happening for him in his value sets.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Totally makes sense.
But it takes effort. I mean,
it takes effort.
Yeah.
It's exhausting,
Yeah.
frankly. That's why leadership can be so hard. And we teach managerial and operational skills, but 85% of people move into leadership roles without leadership tools.
Definitely.
85%.
85. That's a giant number.
It's assumed that you will have absorbed that through being
You won't.
through
You
being
didn't.
led, but
Nobody did.
Nobody does. It's a skill, and I think effort often takes time, and leadership often doesn't have time. They don't feel like they have enough time to do this or do that, or take the time to really understand the person sitting across from them. So.
And it sounds like need to be like learning to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. That's kind of like what you need to do. It sounds like, because all of it you said was like, oh, this is uncomfortable. People don't like to do it, so they avoid it.
It's so messy. It's so messy, and we avoid it because we don't have the tools, right? And this is a little bit of an unpopular opinion, but I've said for years in my classroom that I don't think that we should be teaching leadership styles for the most part anymore. We should actually be talking about toolkits. We should be talking about leadership tools. A colleague of mine and I refer to it more frequently as a leadership practice, right? Rather than a leadership style, because you as a leader don't have the luxury to have one style. It's your job in the power position to jump the line and to show up the way your team needs you to show up. But that means you need to know if you need a hammer or a saw or whatever tool, cue, the level this week. Are you walking softly with a big stick, or are you bulldozing through things this week? And sometimes different scenarios call for both.
Yeah, different employees call for different situations.
So the toolkit becomes more important, but because it's a practice, you never are like done. You have to keep sharpening those tools.
Gary Vaynerchuk is this entrepreneur,
I love
and
him.
he talks about. I've heard him say that you have to, as a leader, as a manager, you have to know what inspires and motivates your staff, your team. And it changes. What motivates them changes all the time, constantly. So, really connecting with them so that you can properly motivate them to do it, whether it's time off or promotion or money.
Yep.
You need to know that so that you can properly get them to do their job,
And you'll see a tiny smidgen of that across generations, right? When we're talking about the generational piece, those values drive some of those motivations.
Yeah.
Right? And so we had a whole generation that was driven by the idea of home ownership. Well, there's a lot of power in the workplace to say, look, we have keys to literal home ownership, right? Through your efforts at work. If we have a generation like Gen Z right now that is less convinced that home ownership is going to be even in their grasp, a paycheck becomes a lot less of a carrot, right? Most of us work to pay for our homes.
Yeah, I heard that they're working more for their experiences. They're
100%.
they're not looking for material items because they just seem out of reach.
They seem out of reach.
So it's like, what can you do? How can you influence my experience?
Right.
Yeah. Speaking of experience, how do you see technology shaping the way generations interact at work? And what should leaders watch out for as new generations enter the workforce?
Oh, boy. Well, I don't know if you guys heard, but AI is happening.
Can you explain AI to me? I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's a new craze.
And it's going to change things really, really fast. Through the UnCourse, you will actually see the big technology impacts each generation had, right? From all the way back to like automobiles to desktop computers. Now with Gen Z and into Alpha Gen, what we're looking at is nano computing and nanobots and AI and how that's going to influence things. So what I would say to leaders that are existing in the workplace right now is be prepared to hear them out. Be prepared to hear out these like young adults, 18, 19, 20-year-olds that have been growing up on VR headsets and growing up with access to ChatGPT as part of their academic experience, and be ready to hear them out about some efficiency ideas, right? It's funny to me because I listen to my youngest, who's 11, on his VR, and the sound quality and ability for like multiple people to be talking at once is like exponentially better than anything we have in like software meeting space. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be appalled when they hit the workplace and they have to go into a, like, I don't want to use any specific names, but a video conference call, if you will. Yeah. They're going to be like, why can't we all talk at once?
Why is the broom slowing us down?
Right. So be ready to listen to their ideas. Much like I alluded to at the beginning of the conversation, millennials had a lot of ideas about technology efficiencies, and everybody said that's not how we've always done it, right? That's not what we do here. You just need to not have so many ideas.
Yeah.
Right? But again, if we'd have considered something, and did they have to consider it too? Yes. Should they have stopped and said, what can I learn from you? Yes.
Yeah.
But I think there's something to be said about how excited people are when they're entering their professional careers for the first time. I heard from another leader one time that she asks new employees to make notes for the first 6 months, right? Just make notes of all the questions you have, all the ideas you have. And in 6 months, we're going to sit down for an hour and a half and I'm going to hear all your ideas. But I want you to wait 6 months so that you can get a better feel, right? But what did she do? This leader has created a culture of, I want to hear your ideas, but I also want you to respect the history. Mm-hmm. Right? Because it is both and. It's always both and.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, sure. And I'm sure if you look at that notebook, some of that stuff is crossed out.
They do.
Because
every time.
Yeah, you get a feel for, oh, that's why we do it this way. Oh, I answered my own question.
Somebody tried that already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the weird thing about the expertise right now is like the younger generations. I mean, we have cars that drive themselves, a lot of automation. And we have, there's some leaders in politics that can't even open their own email or don't even know what it is or what a tweet is. And, so there's that weird generational gap of expertise, which everyone's using AI, but the people who are making the decisions don't even know what an email is. So it's
just think how big that gap gets when there's another generation that enters the workforce.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Totally. So if you could give one piece of advice to a manager, maybe of a small business who's struggling with the vast generation gap that we're talking about, what is like the one thing they should really focus on and do?
Oh, one thing. I think it really still comes back to leadership development, right? What are you doing to keep learning, right? Learning creates new neural pathways in our brain, and that opens our mind up to other people's experiences, whether it's generational, whether it's personality driven, whether it's religious driven. It allows us to stop and just question the assumptions and the biases that we're carrying around with us, right? So leadership development, unfortunately, is not a small ask, right? And it is not a like one and done thing. It's not a, hey, I read this one book. It's okay, what are you doing this month, right? What is your thing this month that you're working on? But I would say get back into learning. The speed of change is gonna just keep accelerating, and we need to be comfortable with that.
Yeah, so not only taking the time yourself to continually learn, but giving that opportunity to your staff to continually learn about whatever it is that they want.
Well, and that's an interesting conversation generationally, because late millennials and Gen Zs, the experience group, right, is really saying, like, I'm hungry for learning. I'm hungry for opportunities to gain new knowledge. Where we're seeing a real big disconnect in the workplace is the workplace wants to say, well, I don't see why that's related to the job, right? I don't want to pay for that professional development or personal development or activity because it's not related to the job. I would argue that all ships rise with the tide, right? So if you are becoming a better person, that brings a better experience to my customers later on, right? And so organizational leaders need to start really expanding their horizons and their beliefs about what is a good value add in terms of development, right? And I hear from a lot of organizations, well, we don't have a budget for professional development. Okay, well, I would challenge that. But if you don't have a budget for professional development, could you give one professional development paid day outside of vacation time a year, right? Where I'm going to not make you be off the clock and you get to go to a conference or a retreat. You have to pay for the retreat, but you don't have to take a day off for it.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting way to approach that. Yeah.
Right?
I mean, there's always a way to do things. I mean, it may not be in a quote unquote budget, but there's other resources you can provide. There's free resources out there. Maybe do the research on that and provide that as the resource for development.
Yeah, or start a book club. Let somebody lead a book club. There's a lot of great ways also to send somebody out to a training and say, we will pay for this, but as a result of paying for it, we want you to bring the content back to us and share 20 or 30 minutes with us.
That's a great thing too.
Right?
Yeah.
Because now, again, we're creating dialogue. Mm-hmm. And dialogue creates opportunities for trust building.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, well, creating dialogue, that's why I wanted to have you here to kind of help talk about a little more about this and this project and everything like that and the book that we have to offer. So is there anything else you wanted to share with us?
I mean, there's so many UnCourses available. Yeah. And so Personalities is one of my favorites.
Where can they find those UnCourses?
Everything is on Amazon.
Okay.
Or they can reach out to me on my website. They can actually get a free download of the small personalities on my website. Because again, it's just about learning, right?
Yeah.
Just keep learning. There's so many opportunities to just keep picking up pieces.
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to do here as well at Central LM is give some more resources for people to learn. Do you want to tell our members how to access her book that we've given out?
Sure. Before I do that, could you just tell us what your website is?
Yeah, it's www.shatteredglassleaders.com.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and stories with us. For our listeners, if you are intrigued about what you've heard, we are giving away copies of this UnCourse, Leading Across Generations. It can be found on our website at centralwcu.org. It's packed with practical tools, audio guides, and prompts to help you lead and live more effectively across the generations. So whether you're a business member, a team member, or just someone who wants to understand people better, we really believe that this UnCourse works for everybody. You can visit our website to claim your copy, and let's keep building better lives together. Thanks for tuning in to the Business Edge podcast.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
The information provided here is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Consult with a qualified financial advisor before making any financial decisions.